Good evening, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to our regular scheduled board meeting tonight. So glad to see all of you present. If you'll join us in the invocation and the pledge. Most gracious Father, it's again that we come before thy throne. Come before you, Father, first to say thank you for your blessings. Thank you, O Heavenly Father, for another day to come before you. To witness a day, dear God, that no man has ever witnessed before. And for that, dear God, we say thank you. And Father, we just ask that you will come and abide with us for a little while. Dear God, as we try and do things for the betterment of this community and for the betterment of our students. Father, we lift up to you those that are sick. We lift up to you the bereaved families as well. And Father, we just ask you continue to bless us and strengthen us. In the name of Jesus, we pray. And we all said, Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor to Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
Continuing with the agenda, item 4, public comments open forum. Mr. Viniak, no one signed up. Item 5, presentations. Board on page 7, you will see item A is the Celebrating Heritage Month at Northside Elementary. It is a presentation by Northside 5th grade students. So I see Dr. Snyder is up here. She's going to present who it is. I see a room full of students. It's all yours.
Good evening, everyone. During the month of October, our teachers and our students did a spectacular job celebrating Spanish Heritage Month. And so we just want to share a little bit of that with you.
Okay, so here are some of our 5th graders. They present a show during Hispanic Heritage Month, and at Northside, each grade level presents something. Some of them did a poem, some of them did a dance, some of them sing. So it was a beautiful celebration, and here are our 5th graders doing the show tonight. Hope you enjoy it.
Matt, can you start it over?
Yeah. Okay, for the second part of that, we have 3 second-grade students with a presentation to read for you. You can move this side. Go. Okay.
My name is Jenna Ortega. I am a Hispanic actor, and many of you know me for my performance as Wednesday. I have been nominated many times and have won awards. I am the second youngest woman to have been nominated for Outstanding Lead Actress. Mi nombre es Selena Quintanilla Pérez y me conocen como Selena. Fui una cantante hispana de la música tejana. Soy conocida como la reina de la música tejana. Fui la primera cantante tejana a ganar un premio en los Grammys y gané alrededor de 67 premios en mi vida. Hasta el día de hoy he hecho impacto. My name is Albert Pujols. I am a Latino baseball player. I recently hit my 700th home run, and I am now the 4th player to do that. I have won 3 MVP awards. I am known as the Machine. I have more than 3,000 hits.
Boys and girls, thank you so much. Parents, thank you for bringing your children and for celebrating them with us. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Northside and Dr. Snyder. That was awesome. All right, moving on. The next item on the agenda, item B on page 16 in the board book. Board, we have asked PBK Architect Company to come tonight and present to you their plan for what they are working with Cleveland ISD on for the bond planning, how they are going to help us get this bond passed in May of 2025. PBK?
Mr. McCandless, board members, thank you for allowing us to be here. I will tell you it's tough going after students, but we're going to try our best to keep your attention. And it's okay if you don't stand for us at the end. We know that you still really care about us. My name is Shalia Reed, and you'll see here we have more of our team members. We'll introduce them a little bit later. I was sharing that this is a beautiful building, and President Carter said, you should go take a tour. Well, I've been here a couple times, so I feel very familiar. And that's kind of part of the process, is understanding the district, understanding the community, and understanding what's happening. So let me tell you a little bit about PBK. We offer about 48 years of leadership in the K-12 space. We have even done some work here. The first version, one of our products is the high school. We helped build the very version of the high school, not the newest piece, but one of the high school, part of the high school. But we also have experience across the country doing that kind of work. And you'll see we have areas of expertise, including bond planning, architecture, interior design, programming, pretty much everything that helps get a building ready for those students right there. Your PBK team that is here in Cleveland is sitting behind me, and I'll just introduce them so you can see them. Mr. Ryan Gregory, he's our senior principal and a chief strategy officer. Caroline Harris leads the facility planning, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Nicole Jordan is our associate principal, the senior design architect, dedicated to Cleveland. Cisa Madera is our community engagement manager. I'm supporting both areas and helping with community engagement. And I have also been working closely with the bond planning committee each week. Also, Eric Smith, who is responsible for Cleveland High, is on our team as the senior principal. Here, we are just showing you what a planning schedule would look like. And part of our process is ensuring that there is a time frame and a timeline. What we know is when we walked into Cleveland, there was an idea that there could be a bond in May. And so we're simply showing you a generic schedule that shows how we would get to that May date and understanding how we get buy-in throughout. And what I'm going to walk through in these next few slides are that process. Our process, I want to point out, in the middle of the page includes community outreach and engagement on every step of the way. So when we do data collection, that means walking every single one of your buildings, understanding the challenges from I'd say a professional standpoint, and then understanding how the end user is using those buildings. It's difficult to understand exactly what is happening in a building, and the example I've given to the bond planning committee is, I don't know about the house that I live in, right? But I can tell you that when we had a challenge, when the hot water heater fell, I wanted a new house. But an expert would tell me that's not exactly the case. There are some challenges. When we bought that house, I walked the building with an expert, but when they asked the person who lived there, they can explain where flooding was or where their pooling was, and that's part of our process. So data collection. We also are able to establish the standards and objectives and the outcomes, and we do that by having conversations with the leadership, with the board members. So if you remember, you would have gotten a survey from us to understand what are your ideas, what are your priorities. Those campus interviews, we have talked to every single principal in your district to understand how they're using the building, what are the challenges, what are some ideas, what are some dreams. And then our team analyzes that and comes up with a solution to come up with a master plan. It's not a one-off. We know that bond planning is not done in isolation as a one-time thing. It's a long-term project, and so we've done that. And then ultimately, we prioritize the implementation. What can the district afford? What can they manage? What do they have an appetite for? And then we ultimately present that to you for your evaluation and determination of what you believe can go forth to the community. And as I mentioned, our process relies heavily on understanding the stakeholders. So we just don't talk to ourselves, we talk to the community, we talk to the leaders, we talk to the department heads. How are the challenges being faced? We have a very robust conversation with transportation. And you would think, if you're building a building, what does that mean for transportation? Well, they indeed are impacted in some kind of way. We also talk to students. And I'd share that your students were probably one of the most impactful conversations we've ever had with a group. They came forth and had a plan, an idea of what they thought was best, what they thought it would take to help the community understand the needs, and what it would take for the community to say yes. And so we rely on all of those efforts to ensure that along the way, we're again not talking in isolation. Here is a look at what a walk looks like. So when I talked about us walking a building, we aren't just walking and looking and noting it. We're in fact loading it into a system that identifies where each piece is, so we aren't relying on our own memory. And you'll see we go line by line, what we've seen, what we've noted. We also mention an aerial shot and understand and take pictures so that it all matches. Again, it's not handwritten. It is done in a very robust digital system, so we can refer to it later. The majority of the work that you will hear about is the bond planning committee and the process. You'll see our very first meeting was done at Cleveland 9, and we were done in the library. And we talked about what it would take, what their hopes, wishes, and dreams were, and we mentioned, how do you get to a consensus? We talked about what consensus meant. We used tacos as an example. I'm a taco lover. It's my favorite food. I think it is a full food. You get a bread, a starch, and vegetables if you need them. But there were people who did not agree with me. But that doesn't mean that we don't walk out and order tacos, right? That just means we have a difference of opinion. And so we explained, using that example, what consensus meant. And we will use consensus as we work through the projects to understand what we would bring to you guys for consideration. The purpose of the committee, though, is not just to have a good time and talk about tacos. They really are evaluating what this district needs and what they believe can be presented. And they do that by looking at these bullets here. What are the needs of the students? what are the demographic projections? And we do that fact-based. It's not what we think, it's not what we feel, it's what we know, and the demographer helps us get to that. We use the existing condition of the facilities, and that's where those walks come into place. Again, not what you feel, not what you think, but actually what the data and the facts support. We talk about the quality education programs, the programs that are coming out of the district, and we do so by understanding what is the strategic plan, what are the academic goals and reaches, and we match those with what the plan is. And that's the same as the district goals. And then we talk about the impact, and you'll see in just a minute, it's not done by me. We bring in subject matter experts who can talk through all of those things. This is the committee in action. There are 56 committee members. And very early in the process, when we engage, we work directly with the district to understand how do we select who is going to serve on the committee. I know that there are a list in line of people who said, sign me up, I want to do it. But we want to make sure that we have the right people who are committed to participate. And that committee is made up of students, parents, business leaders, staff, clergy, and community. It's just not one or the other, it's both. There are several members who meet a couple different categories there because we do want to make sure everyone's perspective is mentioned there. And you can see they're all engaged. We've set up an opportunity where they are required to come to 80% of the meetings because we want them to feel connected to the work and connected to the outcome. Our first meeting was Thursday, October 24th. It was somewhat of an orientation. Our second meeting was November 7th. Where we dug a little deeper. We have a meeting tomorrow where we go even deeper into understanding the facilities. And then December 5th, after the holiday, we will start to begin to allow the committee to design what we believe we're going to present to you. And then December 12th is there for us to go back to that consensus and then decide what we're going to present to the board. I'm going to go deeper into the meeting agenda. So here is the first meeting agenda. And the committee members receive this agenda. We walk through it. We do it from 5:30 to 7:30. We try to honor their time. We did welcome and introductions. We talked about that process in depth so that they just aren't, walking in blindly. We go through the steps of the process. We provided an overview of the district. Actually, district leadership did that so that everyone is on the same page and understanding where the district is going. We talked about the demographics. We identified that Cleveland is, in fact, the fastest growing district in the state of Texas. That is the truth. It has not changed. It will continue to be that way. And then a financial advisor came in and went in, this was when Ms. Billingsley shared School Finance 101, which we know could be a college level course, but she helped us to understand that it is basically the state is giving us a set amount of money, and there are some things that leave a gap, and how we make up the gap and what the two pots of money could be used for. Meeting 2 is where we went back over that. We got their feedback, so we asked a question of, what are you dreaming about? What do you believe the district needs? And through the feedback, we put them in buckets, and we understood everyone's thinking about the same thing. Safety and security came up, the need to reduce the number of students in each one of the buildings, the idea to improve some of the facilities that have been here for a longer time than others. They talked about technology, increased programming, CTE came up. Some of the things that you saw in your survey are the buckets that came up from our committee. Again, an opportunity to continue to weave in the work. So we reminded the groups of that. We did an exercise that I wish we'd have done for you, but it's dreaming about what does a school look like in 40 years? And if you just take a pause and think about, what will a school look like in 40 years? I don't know. We don't know. But what we do know is that there are some things that won't change. People will still need to learn, to have access to information, but they may be doing it in a very different environment. They may not be sitting in classroom desks or chairs. They may not be in buildings. They may have access to computers from their home, or there's a world in which maybe here's where you get your information off of your phone and there's a chip in you. We don't know, but we are actually preparing the world for the next 40 years. And so we talked about that and what that meant. and we began looking at our facility assessments. And you can see from the slides, this is what we presented, which was pictures and photos of the facilities, and we showed the existing conditions and some identified needs, and we went through detail about that. We also looked at facility capacity and tax impact, and you can see here where the tax rate is for local districts, and we talked about what an amount could be. I believe $165 million is what our taxes advisor said, our financial advisor said. He also gave an idea about how he got there, what would be the challenge, what could be the impact, and those kind of things. And then as we prepare, we want to remind our committee, our community, that there is an ongoing conversation, that although those meetings are designed for the bond planning committee, everyone in Cleveland and connected to Cleveland is part of the conversation. And so the communications team and our team work together to make sure that we recap the meetings and have access to the information for the committee. We believe that informing and making sure voices are heard will be the way to ensure that the bond could be passed. I'll leave the time. I know our time has been well spent. We'll leave the floor open if there are questions. Our entire committee team is here, so if there are specific questions that I can't answer. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalia. Thank you, PBK, for the work you're doing with the community to inform them about the bond. And Shalia said for the bond that could be passed, and I started to look at her and say that will be passed. Because we're going into this with a very positive attitude and outlook. January 1st will bring a whole new year, and we're going to think positive about it, even though we know the challenges we have, but we appreciate PBK bringing it to the community in a different way than what we've had in the past. So thank you. All right, item C. It's on page 32 in the board book. Presentation of private resale bids by Derek Mendoza with Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson.
Good evening, esteemed board members and superintendent. Thank you so much. I'll try to be brief. We only have one bid tonight. If you have that in your board books, let's see. The account number is 007-440-000131-008. The property description for this bid is Smith Cleve, Block 1, Lot PT 14, Tract 25, and it's 0.17 acres. The bid amount is $4,500, so that would give the school a 35% recovery. However, as per the tax code, section 3405, there's really no requirement for a vote on this. However, as a courtesy, I wanted to bring it to your attention so you can vote on it, because the bid is actually greater than the adjudged market value, which at the time of judgment was $4,440. The bid amount is $4,500. So again, no pressure for a vote, but I would like for you to do that. That way, at least you're informed of this, and that we have a bid, and that we can get this property off the struck-off list and making money for the school. Now, it's been held in trust, or it has been struck off to the school since February 2nd of 2021, so it's been a few years, and again, I would recommend that hopefully you agree to get it back on the roll. If you have any questions for me at this time, I'd be happy to answer them. I think there's a map there. You can see where the property's located. Other than that, that's all I have tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. Item D, page 34, presentation on the district's career and technical education program. Overview by Ms. Karen Steinbach.
Good evening, everybody. Excited to be here because I'm excited about our kids, but I want to take a little bit off of CTE. We just found out that Colonel Hunt's team and all the students, they passed their inspection this year and they got a 97. So, yeah. He was very, very happy, and I was happy for him because then I don't get yelled at later tonight when I go visit him and his wife. Anyway, So program interview or overview. We're going to talk about the career clusters and the programs of study. I will tell you that as a district our size, we still have accommodated a lot of our students. There are only 14 career clusters. We have 13 of the 14, so I think that's pretty good to know. CTE enrollment has increased. However, you're going to see that I put in 2 zeros. I'm going to talk about how we need to kind of change some things because we have restructured CTE. And as my husband would say, liars figure and figures lie. So I want to be upfront on that. And then CTSO is just talking about what our kids are up to. And then a little bit of a look of it at CTE as a whole. So enrollment. All right, so I told you about the 2 zeros for 7th and 8th grade. We do have CTE students in there. All students in 7th and 8th grade are enrolled in CTE programs. However, they are not in high school programs this year. And in the past, they have been in high school. So in order for us to look at apples to apples, I took them out. Next year, you'll actually see what children are in that class, those classes. And again, it is all of the 845. And we'll compare that to next year's. So if we look at it from that perspective, 9th grade is a little bit different in numbers this year because we still have the kids from principals involved in that. And there was a decision a number of years ago to move principals down into the middle school. And that hurt us when we opened up the CTE campus for 9th because frankly, the next level in our programs goes to a 2-period class with a lab, and C9 doesn't have the capabilities of that. So in order for us to utilize C9 properly and for us to still have the proper education for our children, we made those decisions. So I'm not really going to go over it in depth because it's not apples to apples. However, I do want you to notice from 9th grade to 12th grade, there is a reduction in percentage, and that would make sense. And we'll talk about that be due to crowding. So if we come here, the different programs that we offer, you're going to see that there have been a number of the programs that have increased dramatically. Accounting is one of them. We had 1 class last year. We have 3 this year. It is an IBC program, which means that we will be getting, hopefully, CCMR credit from it. Agriculture dropped a little bit. I think that's twofold. One, due to some of the changes that we had in middle school, and frankly, this year we thought we were going to lose one of our very best ag teachers, and it really disheartened a number of the students. A number of them did drop this year in that program. Construction and architecture, it's about the same, but reality is it is grown in numbers. There's just a little finagling with the numbers on that. AV production, you're going to see it has dropped a little bit, not significant. We had issues with C9 2 years ago, I guess it was. Well, actually, for 2 years. AV is a doing program. It's not a sitting program. And so with it being over at C9, they were limited to do things. This year, they're a little bit more involved. We're busing them over. And more importantly, they got to see the rest of the program. They get to see all of the equipment that's available to them. And hopefully you'll see one of our videos, or you have seen one of the videos they created. Business management has stayed about the same. Robotics, there's just no more room for the airplane. We are actually finally going to get the ship out of the room and have a plane that is able to get out now. We're excited about that. High school career prep, last year we had more students, mainly because we weren't following the rules. Okay, the rule is you don't have a job for 2 weeks, you're out. So the new teacher that we've put in there, that has been a very good rule for her. But more importantly, we have offered more WBL options. That's work-based learning, which allows us to keep them at the school and still get credit for work-based learning. Work-based learning does come out in the community. Those kids that are working at McDonald's and they're an ag student, guess what? That counts. Why? Because there was a cow involved in that meat. All right, and there was wheat involved in that bun, and so somebody grew the lettuce, right? And so that is agriculture, and I laughed because I'm a culinary teacher, so I was like, oh, come on. But, you know, in the discussion process with other people far brighter than I said, okay, I go with it, and, you know, it works easier for us anyway. Health science has decreased a little bit because they found out that poking an arm isn't as easy as they thought. We had a number of kids go, but there's blood. But we have added a new program to offset that, and that is billing and coding. And I love it for our kids because billing and coding allows a student to work from home after they graduate and make decent money. Now, the first 3 years, that's not the case. They will have to work in a doctor's office, but after 3 years, they can be a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home dad, who cares, and move on appropriately. And then IT has grown significantly, but frankly, I don't want it to grow much more. His classes are full, and my geek squad is to a point where if it gets much bigger, we won't be able to manage the kids in the hallway. What are you laughing about? Yeah, our Geek Squad is saving the district money. Your technology people don't come to the district very often. Our teachers use the same program that they would use at C9 or anywhere else to put in their issues with technology. The only difference is Mr. Adu goes through them all, and he pulls them all, and he assigns them to a student. And those students then they have team managers. They have badges to be able to be in the hall. They go to the classroom. They fix the problem. If they aren't able to, they carry radios of their own. And their radios go back to Mr. Adu, and he says, well, did you check this, this, and this? Adu only will go on projects where he feels like it's a learning experience. He doesn't want to be there if they know it already. He wants them to feel confident. So that is work-based learning in the classroom. Welding has grown, and the way we're doing this is pretty different. And actually, I have to give Dr. Roeder some credit on this. Construction, there's only so many pieces of equipment. We don't have very many. We have one saw in our lab, okay? So it's not like I can say, oh, well, 10 kids can be on that saw. With welding, we have 30 units in each one of our welding labs, but in the past, with only one teacher, I couldn't really assign more than 24 kids and feel good, and even that is considered high. What we did now is we use practicum kids, and they are identified as shop managers. And so for the day, for that period, they go in and they are also the eyes and the ears of the teacher. So now, instead of having 24 and me having concern all day, we're up to 30, which is what is in the shop to begin with, and we have practicum students getting WBL hours, which are important for funding, as well as the teacher. So now they are actually helping the younger ones learn how to weld. And Mr. Wiggins is able to go in, or Seaberger, or any of the other ones, and actually go in and fine-tune some of that learning. Marketing and sales, that's gone up significantly, and that's good because we get a CCMR out of that one, and I expect to see some good numbers out of there this year. Ready to Teach has grown, and I think that has a lot to do with Ms. Glenn. She's done a whole lot of work. You'll see on the CTE page that we went to Taffy. I say we because I was a judge, but we have 2 kids going to state. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then aviation and mechanics, again, there's only so much room in the plane room or in our robotics room. Okay, so as far as course is concerned, you're going to see the growth. We did have it, and I'm going to move on because I talk too much, because I'm proud of them. Career clusters and programs of study. As you can see, we have 30 programs of study. Over the next few weeks, you are going to see that I'm going to be posting the programs of study by each of the clusters. They will each have their own page eventually when, there's time. But the fact that we have 13, when I'm at other conferences, they are always like, you have 13 of them? Yes, we do. Now, are we full with all of the different potential pathways? No, but we have a number of them when you figure 30. Okay, so programs of study. So this just tells you we have yet to put environmental and natural resources in. It's twofold. One, we haven't found a teacher that would teach it, okay? And that is the same. Entrepreneurship, though, we just opened up. We had some kids transfer in, and we're also using it for our cosmetology as a practicum course, because cosmetology 2 doesn't count as a practicum. We don't get as much funding. Entrepreneurship does, and it's allowed within the pathway. You go to the next one. We don't offer travel and tourism in the hospitality area. If we get some bigger name hotels in this area, then I think we would open it up. Marriott or Sheraton or Hyatt, forget Sheraton, I'm sorry. Sheraton, Hyatt, and Marriott, they offer programs for schools. The other ones that we have here are really driven by franchising, where Marriott and Hyatt do not, and they would be better partners for us. Let's see, and I think that's it. So certifications, so this is last year's certifications. I can't give you this year's because we really don't test until the spring. So you're looking at what we achieved. I would say we did pretty darn tootin' well. Everybody was happy with our numbers from a percentage-wise. My excitement is, though, that this year we have access to a number of other vehicles for being able to give more CCMRs. We are now able to use NOCTI. We have a lot of students that frankly can't take the FAA test. They don't have documentation. I've tried every maneuver known to man, and I can't weasel them in, but NOCTI lets us have it. So those students that have been working on that plane are still going to get a CCMR. It's just not going to be the FAA Part 107. So there's your number. And then CTSOs, that's what we're up to. Health occupations, the kids in December will be taking their certification through HOSA. Skills, that doesn't get hot with us until February when they go to district. We always show up at state, and we are a school district that people are worried about when we show up. It's kind of nice to have. TAFE, as we talked about already. The FFA kids, obviously, they've always been a very involved group. We have a number of kids that have been already going to some state functions because they won their district. And welding club and robotics, this is actually something the kids wanted to do, mainly because it was a way for them to do extra practice after school. It's one thing to be in skills because we can only have so many teams, but with robotics club and with welding, I have no cap. So as many kids as want to be a part of it, we allow them to be so. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Documentation, is that in reference to legalization?
Yes. Yeah, FFA won't let, or FAA, unless you are a legal citizen, you cannot take those. And that makes sense that they wouldn't let them take that test. Kind of goes probably back to 2001. Or 2011. When was it? 11? One. I don't know. Anything else? Was it 9/11, 2001?
2001.
Okay.
Yeah.
Been a long time, people.
I have a question whenever, with their certificates. Do we support, is there fees attached to them getting like their cosmetology license? And
Some of them we
support
do.
them?
We do. The cosmetology one, frankly, the reason we started charging for it is because it's an expensive test, and we were on the 5th and 6th time of giving tests. And so the decision was made, you need to have a little skin in the game. So the cheaper ones, we do. You know, and this sounds terrible, but we do get a CCMR for Word and for Excel. Excel I consider a little bit more difficult, but Word, I'm sorry. If you write an email and you have any common sense, you should be able to get that CCMR. I don't think it's fair for us to charge them, and we get it fairly cheap. But when it comes to the more technical ones, I think you have to have skin in the game. So for health science, they pay up front. If they pass on the first time, they get reimbursed.
So just to clarify, the students' 3 to 4 year commitment isn't enough skin. We're now making sure they're
But they
paying
don't always
the
have
$700
that.
to $800
Yeah,
for the cosmetology.
They don't pay $700 and $800 for their certification.
So
They
how
do
much
pay.
is the cosmetology certification?
I think it's $75 to $100, depending. And I mean, none of them are super expensive. Health science runs around $150, but that's a lot of money, especially when, frankly, budgets have been cut. And if I have a choice between getting you some more needles to practice with, sad to say, versus that, I have to have the supplies.
But just out of curiosity, does it hurt us if they can't take that test?
We
in the
figure it out.
CCMR?
There's called the scholarship, meaning we work together to figure it out. They can have skin in the game without cash if necessary. You know, you come in and you work and clean the lab one day. Okay, there would be never a time I would say no. I mean, even if it had to be the Karen Steinbach Scholarship funded by Jerry and Paul. So, yeah. Okay, anything else? All right.
Thank you, Ms. Steinbach. Item E on page 50, presentation of board outcome goals, beginning of year update. Ms. Monique Boone from CNI.
All right, good evening, everyone, and I'm here to talk to you about our House Bill 3 progress report based on our BOY assessments. So we're going to start off with our early math. This is pre-kinder all the way through second grade. And our students in pre-K, they take the circle exam, and this is geared towards, it's something that we have to report to the state, and it's geared towards ensuring that students are on level entering pre-K where they are. And so we have a big range, but you'll see here, we did our MOY. We said that by 2025, they'd be at 71%, for African Americans, Hispanic 77, 81%, and as you go across, we're already at 73% of our students being on grade level in pre-K in regards to the math circle screener. And then this is a breakdown by school of how students performed on that pre-K test. Again, that is through CLI, the circle exam. And so some of the components from that test is measurement, counting skills, students being able to name shapes, also operations and patterns, along with being able to identify their numbers. And so you can see that in English, we are at 73%, and then we're at 73% in Spanish. So as we move along to our kinder students, they take a different test, which is called Texas KIA. It's the kindergarten entry exam to see where they are. So we know that not all students go to school in pre-K, so sometimes, a lot of times, this can be their first year in school. And so it is, we are projected to be at 63%, and right now for the BOY, we are at 36% for our students being on grade level in math. And again, for that exam, it is a mathematical skills, and then it also infuses some STEM. And this is where we are in English for our students in kinder. For the math, BOY is at 36% overall. And then for our, for our kinder in Spanish, it is at 80%. Being proficient and on grade level in math. Let's move on to our first grade. You'll see that for our math progress, they use a different tool, which is our assessment through iReady. And then that diagnostic, of course, being in first grade, their skills are a little bit more complex for students. They've been in the school for kinder and first grade and some pre-K, so you will see these numbers are a little bit lower, but this is our baseline. This test is new for students to take, and it is a little bit more complex. So when you look at the test from pre-K to kinder to first grade, you may say, oh my gosh, like these scores are low. But again, that's our baseline to see where students are coming in. This is before they receive any instruction. And again, this test is new for a lot of our students. Then when we look at second grade in English, of course, you'll see those scores for our different campuses. Then we'll move into early literacy. So early literacy, again, the students take the test. They take the circle exam for pre-K, and we have at 77% by the end of the year. We are already at 25% of our students who are on grade level based on that assessment. And then here in pre-K, we are at 60%, which 83% is the projected for pre-K in literacy. I'm sorry, let me go back. The first one is monolingual, so that's English is at 25%, and then in pre-K is 60% for our Spanish-speaking students. So if we look at it for pre-K across our district, looking at each particular campus, overall in Cleveland, again, English is at 25%, but this shows you the breakdown. And then for Spanish, again, we're at 60%, but this shows you the campus breakdown. So as we move into kinder, this is our monolingual, so our students who receive instruction in English. We are at 69% of those students that are already on grade level. Our projection was 54% by the end of the year, but already at BOY, they were at 69%. And then in our dual language, those students, they are at, the projection was 76%, and we're already at 84% across the district that are on grade level. And then this shows you again the breakdown by campus and where we are. And then this is the kinder dual language. So as we move into our first through second grade, well, we look at first through second grade because they haven't tested in STAR just yet. So as you look at those numbers, you'll see that again, it is those numbers can appear to be low, but I want to take a second just to explain why. So they take the circle exam, and that only tests their ability to notice numbers and cite words for that grade. And then in pre-K, it is what they come with. Then when we move into our kinder and first grade, then those students they have to test their comprehension as well. So as we look at phonics instruction, but then we also look at comprehension, this is added in first grade where it wasn't in pre-K and kinder, which is why the scores can appear to be like, why is there such a disconnect? But it is the first time that they are tested with their comprehension. And again, this is BOY. This happened in September in October, so they hadn't received that instruction yet. And this is for second grade. Across the district, we're at 7% for our BOI. I also want to take a pause to just kind of talk about, we went to a conference not too long ago, and we got some data, and it showed that our students from third grade through eighth grade, 84% of those students were below grade level. And so this goes to iterate how it is important for our pre-K, kinder, first and second grade students to receive dynamic instruction, because if they don't come to third grade ready, then they get further and further behind. These are numbers for our Spanish exam. So this is first grade, 16% of students are on grade level, and it shows you across the campuses. And then second grade, it is also at 16%. So again, you'll see across campuses. I also like to note here that in our students that are in Spanish, the phonics in Spanish is a little different from the phonics in English. In English, it's a little more complex, so they do phonics instruction longer, whereas in Spanish, they go towards comprehension a little bit earlier. So you'll see that notated in the percentages. So the assessments, again, that we take the circle exam for pre-K. We do the Texas KIA, the kindergarten entry assessment, and then we do iReady for first through third, which is our universal screener diagnostic. So some baselines that we have notated is that we know that students are taking the BOY data that is required by the state, so it measures the reading readiness of our students. And then we know that we start a new 5-year cycle this year. Moving forward, we have our HQIM usage, so we are pushing our teachers to use it with fidelity. We also have our systematic phonics instructional material that we use. So we use iReady magnetic reading in English, and then Estrella for our Spanish students. And then this is important because this ensures that they're getting the quality instruction that is needed for them to just achieve and continue to progress throughout their schooling and into third grade. So we also provide professional learning and support. So our teachers are going through reading academies. They also receive that in PLCs with their instructional coaches. And then when we have district days, we try to provide specific training to teachers so that they're able to continue with the learning and teaching of phonics instruction. And we have the ongoing coaching that teachers get throughout the year. And our biggest thing is the hiring and retaining high quality teachers. Because if we train them and train them and train them and then they don't stay, that becomes an issue because we know teaching phonics is a muscle that you have to work in order to become really good in it. But if we have a lot of first-year teachers or a lot of teachers that are new to teaching, they don't know how to teach phonics, and that takes a lot of training in order to get them prepared so that our students are prepared. Any questions? Yes.
You mentioned the 3-year gap between the students. How are we closing that gap?
Oh, so that's a great question. We close the gap, one, by make sure that we have the right curriculum for teachers to use. And in that curriculum, not only does it have on grade level resources, but it also provides teacher moves so that teachers understand what to do. Regardless if you're a new teacher returning, that you're able to open that book, study it, internalize it, and then provide quality instruction. We also have a mirror, which is an AI component. It is similar to back in the day when you would read to the teacher and they would take notes on your miscues. Well, it does that automatically, and it gives students, it allows for it to be individualized for students so that they get what they need. It also gives the reports, so now that teachers, instructional coaches, and administrators can now look at those reports and look at what needs to happen in instruction.
Is that the program where the kids can do it without having to do it in front of their peers?
I believe so. Yes, they put on their headphones,
Right,
they're able to read to it, and then it listens and it cues it and it tells the students, or not the students because they're little, but it tells the teachers what is needed and where students are. So it's a great way to kind of expand what we would have had to do one student at a time per teacher.
Thank you.
I noticed the math scores are kind of lagging as well as the reading. Do we have something like a mirror on the math side to come in and help mediate where they might be falling behind in math? Like, what's our plan for our math scores too? Because I feel like we spend a lot of time with reading, but math seems a little nerve-wracking as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we do have iReady. They have the teacher toolkit as well as Ready Texas. For our students to be able to have that intervention. They have the personalized plans for the students where they're able to get on. Of course, with the diagnostic, it tells the program where they are, and then it creates a personalized pathway. Along with that, they also have Magma Map, which they are able to get on, and the teacher can create pathways or specific problems that the students can engage in and work through.
Anyone else?
Yes, there appears to be quite the discrepancy between monolingual and dual language students in early literacy. Can you clarify that?
Oh, yes. So that is a common trend that we see not just here in Cleveland, but across the state. And again, when we look at the English language and learning the English language is a lot more complex than learning the Spanish language when it is your first language. And so students do tend to fare better because it's not as much phonics and they move into comprehension a lot sooner. And so when they take the test in Spanish, then they're able to comprehend a little bit faster.
Anyone else?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Boone. Moving on, item 6, information items. Item A on page 74, bilingual education exception ESL waiver for the 2024-25 school year. This waiver has been submitted by the district. If you have any questions, Ms. Catherine Anderson, our Director of Bilingual, is in the audience. Ms. Anderson, were you going to present any on this? Okay. So she's here if you do have questions. All right, moving on. Item 7, report, superintendent's report. Before I do the student enrollment and attendance rate data, I have some presentations to make. The first presentation, board, and I would like for anyone who is in the Cleveland ISD Education Foundation to please come forward. Make your way to the podium. Cleveland ISD Education Foundation. And while they make their way up here, we want to thank them for the work they do because they give a lot of money to our teachers. But board, what I have in my hand here, and it will be presented to them, is the city of Cleveland. This past week at their city council meeting, they did a proclamation, and I'm going to read this proclamation real quickly. Whereas the transformative power of education shapes not only individuals but communities and societies, and whereas the Cleveland ISD Education Foundation remains a steadfast partner in supporting educators, students, and families through scholarships, grants, resources, and innovative programs, and whereas Giving Tuesday is a global movement dedicated to generosity, philanthropy, and the collective efforts to uplift causes that matter, and whereas the Cleveland ISD Education Foundation plays a pivotal role in expanding opportunities for students and empowering educators to reach their fullest potential, fostering a brighter future for all, and whereas on this Cleveland ISD Education Foundation Day, we recognize the importance of supporting the Foundation's mission to advance educational excellence and equity for every student, and whereas it is through the generosity of donors and community supporters that the Cleveland ISD Education Foundation is able to continue its vital work, ensuring that education remains a powerful and accessible force for change. Therefore, I, Danny Lee, Mayor of the City of Cleveland, Texas, do hereby proclaim the Tuesday following Thanksgiving Day as Cleveland ISD Education Foundation Day. Calling upon all individuals, families, businesses, and community leaders to consider contributing their time, resources, or financial support to the Foundation's ongoing efforts to enhance educational opportunities for all, witnessed by Mayor Danny Lee. So thank you, Education Foundation. If you would take this, please, and Matt will get pictures of y'all holding your proclamation.
You look like I'm on a debate team.
Thank you all for what you do. Thank you so much. Another item to present, I would like Mr. McDonald and Lacey Green to come up to the podium, please. They have a certificate to present to a staff member from Santa Fe Middle, and I will let them do the honors.
Well, good evening, everyone. I stand before you tonight ready to celebrate one of my Jaguar staff for their heroic efforts on campus. I believe it was the day after Halloween when the students were coming to school with their wonderful pieces of candy they got the night before. And in Ms. Rivera's class, we received a call that the nurse was needed. I learned later that before the nurse arrived, Ms. Rivera had a student who began to choke on a hard piece of candy. She immediately went into action, having a student hit the emergency call button so the clinic could be called, and then begin to use her safety training to perform the Heimlich maneuver. The student's piece of candy became dislodged, and by the time the clinic nurse staff arrived, everything was calm, the student was all smiles, and everything was good to go. So, Ms. Rivera, we thank you so much. Thank you for your being a true hero.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Moving on, the student enrollment and attendance rate data. Our current enrollment as of November 18th today is 12,542, and our attendance sits at 92.81, keeping it as close to the 93% as possible. Item 2, the Texas School Safety Center TEA Notice of Intruder Detection Audit conducted on a random date. There were no findings. Our campuses scored 100% safe. Item 3, Staff Development Day is this Friday, November the 22nd. Thanksgiving holidays will be November 25th through the 29th, all next week for students and staff. DLA graduation, that is at 6 p.m. on Thursday, December the 19th, and board, you received that invitation at your place tonight from Mr. Rodriguez. Item 6, the December board meeting is Monday, December the 16th at 6 p.m. The Christmas holidays are from December 20th, that is a Friday, everyone is off that Friday, through January 3rd, which is also a Friday. And then the following Monday is a staff development day for staff. Students do not return until January 7th. Item B is on page 78, and item C on page 115. Those are your financial reports and campus and department reports. If you have any questions, please bring them forward. No questions?
Everybody good? Everyone's good.
All right, item 8, consent agenda items. I will read both. Item A, approve bills and payroll, and item B, approve the minutes of the regular meetings of October 7th, 2024.
Entertain a motion to approve. Motion by Mr. Sampson,
Second, Porter.
second by Ms. Porter. Any questions? There be no questions, all in favor? Motion passes 6-0.
Item 9, considered agenda items. I'll read these individually. Item A, consider approval of tax resale bids as presented by Derek Mendoza with Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson.
Motion, please.
Motion.
Motion. And a second? Second by Mr. Sampson. Thank you, Ms. Mr. Porter. Questions? There be no questions, all in favor? Y'all sound alike. Motion passes 6-0.
Item B, consider approval of the 2024-25 district and campus improvement plans. That's on page 305.
Entertain a motion. Ms. Pena. Second by Mr. Sampson. Are there any questions? There be no questions. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Item C.
Item C, consider approval of resolution to cast votes in support of candidate to serve on the 2025 Liberty County Central Appraisal District's Board of Directors.
Motion, please. Ms. Pena. Second by Ms. McNair. Any questions? Be no questions. All in favor? Well,
Yes.
okay, I didn't.
Yeah, it wasn't previously
Yeah, it
selected. Y'all do that tonight.
Boy. Looking for a volunteer?
There's a list of names that you gotta decide if you're picking me or somebody else.
I think we need to pick Miss Wendy. She's good for the job. Can I get a motion on that?
I think that's the motion we have.
They did. So we need to go ahead and approve that. I lost my,
I'm gonna abstain since this vote pertains to me.
It's on page 635, Mr. Carter.
you don't have to abstain. You can vote for yourself.
Oh, your tabs are,
Yeah, mine's in that tab, right?
it's numbered on the far right of each page.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, ma'am. My team. So we want to vote, all in favor?
Second.
Second, and all in favor? 6-0. Congratulations. You'll learn a lot. Next item.
Willie was just making sure his name was not on that resolution. I know what he was doing. Item D, this is on page 639. Consider approval to award request for proposal, RFP 25-04, for general services.
We'll entertain a motion, please. Motion by Ms. Pena. Second by Ms. Brooks. Any questions? There be no questions, all in favor. Motion passes 6-0. Next item, E.
Item E, page 641, consider approval to award request for proposal, RFP 25-05, for instructional services.
Motion? Mr. Sampson? Ms. Pena? Are there any questions?
These are just like re-ups, right? We're not purchasing new instructional materials. This is what we already have, right? We just have to re-up on it. Okay, just
Good.
making sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Alex.
Good questions. Okay, no other questions, all in favor? Motion passes 6-0. Item F.
Consider approval to award request for proposal, RFP 25-01, for silent panic alert technology systems and related items. You'll find that on page 643. Mr. Oswini is here tonight if you do have questions.
We do.
Okay, Mr. Oswini to the podium.
Are you gonna give us explanation?
Hello, board. All right, here to answer your questions.
But we're gonna go ahead and take it through, entertain a motion to approve. Okay. Second by Mr. Sampson. Now questions and explanation, please.
The SPAT is, the Silent Panic Alert Technology System is required by Alyssa's law. It's required to be in all schools starting next school year. We've done the work to get bids as required and submitting all that information to the board based on our evaluation of the best vendor to provide that system. It is meant to allow every employee to initiate, you can program it to do certain things, but in effect initiate a school lockdown or any sort of action that we've programmed into the system faster. It also allows, once initiated, our automatic communication to all our law enforcement, public sector partners with the exact location of who and where it was initiated. It sort of goes to kind of the Uvalde thing where, you know, they didn't know where the person was. This system allows, once initiated, will give them exact location on where to go.
So it being silent is better than the audible, but it's going to be specific as to a location of an intruder.
Location of the person who activated the system.
Would you describe what kind of
Yes, sir. So the Silent Panic Alert system could be multiple things, but most generally it's a wearable device. If you think of the help, I've fallen down and I need help kind of thing, something similar to that, except in this case it's not help, I've fallen down, it's help, Houston, we have a problem, I have an issue in my classroom kind of thing. Most of the vendors that provide that system offer the wearable, which is the preferred option we are looking for. One of the things with the law as well is that it cannot be hosted on an employee's cell phone. And so thinking about our schools and some of the issues we have with cell phone coverage and access and things like that, we just thought the wearable would be the better option. And so all the research, all the data that we found points to that being a very great system, and we've provided a recommendation to the board on the best vendor to achieve that.
And board, we've had some false alarms with the cell phone, as you know. This has, and we won't describe to public, but it has a series, they'll be trained on how to push it. It can't
Correct.
be just
It
one
can't be
time.
accidentally initiated.
No.
Or at least it shouldn't be.
No.
You have to work at it to do that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said all employees. So like, for instance, you know, Mr. McCandless or even like Mr. Brooks and his team, they go to multiple campuses throughout the day. and it's, you know, if Mr. Brooks is on a campus and notices something and he pushes his button, it's going to know he's at Santa Fe. It's not going to think he's at the service center.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Brooks, I didn't mean to kick on you.
Good one pick.
So it's a GPS
So
type.
GPS.
And every staff member of the district's gonna have it, from anybody like Mr. Brooks maintenance guys to people here in central office. We're
Yes,
gonna
ma'am.
outfit
Every
everybody.
employee.
Okay.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carter's working for the district. He leaves the district. How do we retain that?
Yes, sir. So that'll be part of the exit process. We're going to work with the vendor on sort of the process for recovering those devices. They can be turned off.
They can or can't?
They can.
Okay.
If someone accidentally, you know, takes one or whatnot. But we are, once we kind of get into the process with the vendor, we'll work out kind of the process for recovery internally and with them. We're also going to build in a process, or the vendor generally has a process for replacing, say, batteries or maintenance, kind of that stuff associated with that. So the information you have is all-inclusive, very limited activity on our end for that as far as maintenance or oversight. So it's a pretty robust system. It does cost money, but yeah, it is what it is.
Another question.
Yes,
and,
sir.
I mean, I love the system and I understand the system, but I'm just not necessarily concerned, but I'm just asking questions. Christmas holidays, vacation. I'm on vacation, I've got it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we got to have some protection in there, so I'm sure you're working on that.
Yes, sir. So as far as a question related to, can I set it off at home or?
Yes.
Correct. So it only works on campus grounds. Within a certain perimeter of campus, so. Correct, and we thought about that in our evaluation. Obviously, we didn't want people to have the opportunity to set it off at home, or someone's not on campus and, you know, or I have a child at home and he sees my little button and goes, oh, what's that? And I'm, you know, avoid that.
Very
Hi.
good. Very
I'm about to make Karen so happy with this question. What happens if a staff member loses the button? How are we replacing them? And are we charging the staff member if they lose their very expensive button?
So that's most of the vendors will have an overage included, right? So we have X number of employees and they'll usually do 10% extra badges over that. Keep in mind too, we have to account for subs, you know, temporaries. So we always have an overage built into the system. As far as if an employee loses it and what that looks like, I think that's a conversation that needs to be had at the leadership level on what
we'll
that
have
looks
later,
like.
huh? That's a good one.
And if I remember right, unlike the phone where we had somebody on holiday at home set off an alarm, this won't work from home? Tell
No,
them
sir.
how that works.
Yes, sir. I talked about earlier. It's geofenced to the campus, and so it only activates once it senses, once the RFI chip inside senses that it's either on campus grounds or within the geofence that the system is placed around a campus.
So this isn't something like our bus drivers could use if they're in an accident, because if they're, you know, down somewhere they don't have cell reception, it doesn't really help their case at all, does it?
Yeah, great question. There are two functionalities with the wearable. One being a lockdown type serious situation. The other being a generic I need help assistance kind of situation. There are options to achieve that sort of a goal with bus drivers. So give them that, say they're on a bus and they need help. We could program, you know, those devices to do that. However, it only work for that purpose. So they couldn't, you know, be at McDonald's and push the button. It wouldn't work in that environment. And all of those contingencies and sort of nuances of things that as we build out the system with the vendor, those are conversations, and they can program the devices to do certain things.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Oswini.
All right. All in favor to approve? Motion passes 6-0. Item G.
Item G, consider approval of district budgeted purchases above $50,000 as per CH local. Item 1's on page 645. Consider approval of project requisition to Chasting Enterprises Incorporated. The funding source will be the general fund.
Ms. for our Maintenance Department, entertain a motion to approve. Ms. Pena? Ms. Porter, second.
I do have a question,
Yes.
actually. Do we not already possess said truck? Do we not have a plumber?
Mr. Brooks, if you'll come up, please.
Yes, the plumber does currently have a truck that he works out of. We are requesting 2 vans, actually it's item 1 and 2 on this. The vans are the larger cargo type vans that we can put materials in, and they can reduce their mileage and driving with them, because currently if he needs a part or something, he cannot put it in a single cab pickup truck with him and keep a abundance of parts in there. These vans will allow him to stock them in there, be able to drive them. We're also requesting these vans because we had 3 vehicles that were reallocated from us to other departments, plus we have 1 vehicle, 1 pickup that was a 2002 and has become unsafe to drive. So we've lost 4 vehicles, so we're actually requesting only 2 vehicles to try to replace them.
Okay, so you're replacing the pickup truck with the van, and that's going to
Yes.
obviously be a better system.
Yes, it should be a cut down on some of the driving time and money for gas.
That does make sense. So we'll stock it, the shelves, and they'll
Yes, this one will have a shelving system in it so that he can keep stock in his vehicle.
That makes sense. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Entertain a motion to approve. Ms. McNair, Mr. Sampson.
I think we all said yes.
Okay. All in favor? I'm sorry. 6-0. Next item.
Item 2, consider approval of project requisition to Silsbee Ford as per local government code funding sources general fund. It's also what Mr. Brooks just spoke of.
Right. Motion for item 2. Mr. Sampson. Ms. Pena, thank you, ma'am. Any questions?
I'm really sorry to have you stand back up, Mr. Brooks. I want to make sure I'm understanding this, because when you say locksmith, I just picture a guy cutting keys, and I'm like, surely, we're not cutting that many keys a day. So could you maybe expand on the use of the van a little bit more, and like what other duties he may have, just because I don't do your job.
We have a locksmith, and he does all our door hardware, all our crash bars, all those items. He keeps in his vehicle those things so that he can secure those doors immediately when right now he's in a pickup truck, he has to drive down south. We've got an unsecured door, he has to drive back to the shop, recut those keys, redo that hardware. That's for him. It also has the devices in it, so he actually has somewhere to cut keys, the electricity in them, that he can cut those keys. And yes, we actually do cut a lot of keys in a day. We go through about probably 40 or 50 keys we cut a week.
Oh my goodness. So like when I saw y'all at Eastside a week or 2 ago, was that the locksmith who was working on that door?
Yes.
Okay. I feel like you had a good reason for it, but I was just in my head stuck at like, how many keys are we cutting, and are we cutting too many keys?
And the van's mainly so he can have equipment in there, and his equipment cannot be out in the weather because it's just very sensitive.
Yeah.
That's good.
Thank you.
You don't need anything else, do you? Go. Okay, where are we? All in favor? 6-0. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Item 3.
Item 3, consider approval of project requisition to Estrellita. The funding source is 263 Title III funds. It's on page 673 if you have questions.
I do, because I don't know what it is. If that's all in favor, you need to take a motion first.
Yeah, you did, Willie.
Okay, I'm confused. Okay, Ms. There you go, Ms. Pena. Don't do me like that. Motion by Ms. Pena, second by Ms. Porter. Are there any questions? And we do need an explanation.
Estrellita. Dr. Alex.
Oh, there she is.
And I do, Board, yes, Estrellita is our science side of our K-2 phonics programming. Currently, there is, with iReady, but we're using that for our English side. There was not a companion for the Spanish side, so Estrellita is the one for our early literacy, phonics.
Oh. So that's why the Spanish name.
Yes,
Okay.
that's why, but you have to say it with your shoulders.
I can't. I'm not going to even try to.
Okay, I have a question.
Can you pronounce it?
Estrellita?
Hey.
Estrellita? Right? Was that right?
That's right.
Okay, Estrellita. Okay, so what, and I know Ms. Anderson, I like to give her a doctorate every now and then. Ms. Anderson has explained it to me, but it has escaped me. What makes this different from Summit K-12? So this is like the testing, and Summit K-12 is like the active learn. No, she's shaking her head no.
Come on
Ms.
up.
Boone, Ms. Anderson. Ms. Boone, come on up.
There's-
We'll just make it
there's
the
some
three
phonics
ladies from
part,
the,
and then there's some
From
language.
teacher
the
and
second
learning.
floor.
So Estrellita is the Spanish phonics program.
Okay.
Summit K-12 is for English language acquisition. So two very, very different programs.
Okay. See, I was like, I feel like I'm convoluting them, but you see K-12, and I'm like, that's kindergarten, right? So we're good. But okay, thank you
The
for.
K-12, so from kindergarten through 12th grade. So it's used in all grade levels, well, really, 2nd through 12th grade in our district.
Yes.
For English language acquisition. So that's what's teaching them listening, speaking, reading, and writing in English.
And this is going to teach them the Spanish component
The
of that.
Spanish phonics.
Okay. Okay.
This is what, those scores that you saw that look so much better in Spanish versus English, this is what's helping us get there.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I still can't pronounce it, but thank you.
We'll work on that. We're working on it.
Hey, Dr. Alex, he needs phonics.
I'm second grade. Okay. You made me forget where we are.
We're voting.
We're voting. All in favor, please? Motion passes 6-0. Item 4.
Consider approval of project requisition to Carnegie Learning. The funding source is 410, instructional materials allotment. It's on page 691, and Dr. Alex is also here if you have questions.
Motion by Ms. Porter. Second by Ms. Pena. Are there any questions?
Is this new or is this something from last year? Oh, she beat you up there.
All right, so we do have Carnegie Math currently for secondary. It is available through the Open Ed resource from TEA. However, it does not come with the digital component, so we recognized early on that we needed the digital component. It offers teacher supports as well as Mathia, which is an online trackable individualized component for students that we do have to pay for.
Right, so this is something they're using in their classrooms. It's not like credit recovery or anything like that.
No, this is for Tier 1 instruction, and it's to add to what we already have.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. All in favor? Motion passes 6-0.
Item 10, TASB policy update. It's on page 716. Board, this is the first reading of the proposed revision to DH Local, Employee Standards of Conduct. If you'll look on the last page of that DH Local, you will notice we have crossed out, strike through the tattoos, because we updated that policy before school started, so now we need to make sure our board policy is in agreement. First reading only. All right, Mr.
So
President.
no need to vote?
No, it's first reading only.
Okay. All right. At this time, we will adjourn for executive session. Will be held in the purpose of authorizing the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.001, convene all purpose permitted by the act, including but not limited to the sections of the purpose of listed below. This time, we'll adjourn for executive session. Thank you for coming.
Please have a great Thanksgiving holiday. Those of you who we will not see, have a